Koyanak, Your Excellency, distinguished guests. Unfortunately, my immune system hasn't taken much of a liking to spring, so I hope you can hear me clearly enough. My purpose in speaking this afternoon is to introduce the new Arctic Oil and Gas Research Centre that we established at the University of Greenland in March this year, and to invite you to contact us with ideas for research activities. We aim very much to be responsive to your suggestions as we develop our research agenda. What do you think needs more investigation? What do you want to know more about? There's no point repeating research that's already been done, but there's also little benefit in research that is purely academic in a pejorative sense, but doesn't have meaning or impact on development decision-making. So first, I'd like to take a moment to explain our logo. It was designed by local artist Eva Lurisige. Does this work? There we go. Sorry, shouldn't have done that. It's inspired by the logo of Illissimuttisarfik, which features the traditional women's boats. And you can see the traditional Inuit dolls, which are reflected in the water. The dolls symbolize the contemporary view of nature derived from traditional Inuit culture. It's a deliberate choice to place the human forms in the center of the logo, as they are the key to our research. Oil and gas is found under the sea, but also in the mountains, so the dolls and the icebergs are seen to drip like oil, and the blue color indicates the Arctic emphasis of our work. Merrild, Hansen and I are co-directors of the center. Anne came to Greenland with her father as a young child and lived in Aleutsepa and Nosak, and later went to gymnasium in Katortork. This is her with her sisters in South Greenland. Anne has a master's in engineering from Aalborg University and then returned to work in the southern municipality, Kommunekujalek, for 6 years. She wrote her PhD on strategic environmental impact assessment in Greenland. And aside from her position as professor at Illissimuttisarfik and director of the center, Anne is associate professor at Aalborg University. Anne can't be with us today as she's currently in Alaska as part of the Fulbright Arctic Initiative program, through which she obtained a research scholarship. She's working on the project Adaptation Actions for a Changing Arctic in the Baffin Bay Davis Strait for the Arctic Council. Anne is an expert on environmental impact assessment processes and tries to find ways of making the participation of communities more meaningful. I'm an Icelander of Scottish origin, married to an Italian, now working in Greenland because it wasn't cold enough. I studied at the University of Glasgow, the European Academy of Legal Theory in Brussels, University of Toronto, and then the University of Akureyri. I'm professor of law at Illissimuttisarfik and at University of Akureyri. In recent years, I've been focusing on international law in the Arctic, and last year I published a monograph on offshore oil and gas development. That book examines the necessary criteria for hydrocarbon activities to be compatible with international environmental law, human rights law, and the rights of Indigenous peoples. And it also tries to answer the question, what happens if we get it wrong? Anne and I make an interesting, but I hope productive team, and our research interests complement one another. Anne is the social scientist, extensive fieldwork experience, especially in Greenland. I'm more bookish, not so comfortable away from my desk, and that's why Anne is taking me around Greenland, first on a boat to South Greenland this coming December, and then next year to East Greenland and North Greenland. It's very important to both of us that we hear different perspectives from different parts of the country, and not just from those of you who can manage to come to Nuuk. We also hope to use our trips to talk to people about the work we're doing and present our results. Anne and I are supported in the centre with 2 other experienced researchers from the university, Birger Poppel and Mark Nuttall. They're going to advise us and help us hone our research agenda. So our work is focused on the social and economic impacts of hydrocarbons. We're not geologists, we're not engineers, though we may at times consult with geologists and engineers to get a better understanding of the science behind the hydrocarbon business. We're interested in trying to make those social and economic impacts as positive as possible for communities, and in trying to avoid some of the mistakes that have been made elsewhere. Greenland's not the first country in the world to try to exploit hydrocarbons, but it does face unique challenges as a result of geography, climate, and demographics. Although based here in Greenland, we know there's a lot to learn from other Arctic communities, and also a lot that Greenlandic experience can teach. We'll therefore be looking at hydrocarbon developments elsewhere in the Arctic and working with an international team of researchers. We want to develop our research in collaboration with all kinds of stakeholders, not just here in Nuuk, but around Greenland, hence our travel plans. We want to hear from representatives of Indigenous peoples, other local communities, governments, oil and gas companies, and NGOs. And it's important our results are accessible. Peer-reviewed journals and book chapters remain the mainstay of academic life and are still the best signal of quality. However, this area is of great political, social, economic, and practical significance, and it's essential that the outcomes of research activities are disseminated widely to all stakeholders, far beyond the traditional academic audience. And therefore, everything we work with will produce a short briefing note in ordinary language to explain our main findings to a wider audience. We'll also present our work in different fora, from formal conferences like this one, to town hall sessions and private meetings with interested parties. The first briefing notes available outside just explains the establishment of the centre. Unfortunately, the Greenlandic version has not quite yet been translated, but I do expect it in the next couple of days. Above all, we want our research to have a practical component and aim to make practical recommendations for policymakers. We don't want to just describe existing processes and legal frameworks. We want to make those better. So having said that we will consult and develop our research in collaboration, we do have some preliminary ideas of research. This is not an exhaustive list, and I don't think there's any need to read it, but it can give you an idea of what we have in mind. I encourage all of you interested in the topic to come to me with more ideas for research. So you can read more about us on our website in Greenlandic, Danish, and English. And if you scroll down on the left in any of the 3 sites, you can find the latest news about our activities and our publications. You can also see on the website when Anne and I are available in Nuuk or elsewhere in Greenland and arrange meetings. And of course, we're always available to correspond by email. So, thank you. Kujana.